Okay. Hey guys. So like Claire said, I'm going to be talking to you about the refugee crisis in Italy. Um, so I have studied abroad and lived in Italy and absolutely love it. But with that being said, Italy is not perfect, and the refugee crisis is an area that they have some work to do. So the refugee crisis affects Italy pretty heavily. In 2015, 157,000 refugees arrived in Italy. Also, Kimberly, if you want to go to the map of the first slide, with a map of kind of a general map of Italy. Um, so in 2016, almost 140,000 refugees have arrived in Italy, and we still have 3 more months in the year. So it's getting a little bit better, but still a lot of people arriving. Italy is so heavily affected due to its location. So it's one of the primary arrival countries. So if you go to the next slide, and you can see that there's not much of the Mediterranean Sea that separates from the African coast to Italy. The refugees that arrive in Italy are mainly from Eritrea, Nigeria, Senegal, Syria. And so basically what happens is the refugees leave their home countries and make what are often already very difficult journeys on land until they reach Libya. And you can see on this slide with the map, with the trail across the Mediterranean Sea, that then their journey transitions to a trip on sea. So this is called the Central Mediterranean route. It's one of several refugee routes, and it departs from the Libyan coast. And the refugees often try to attempt to arrive on Lampedusa or Sicily, which are two southern islands off the coast of Italy. So a huge issue in these trips is the danger to get across the Mediterranean. On the next slide, you can see a picture of a typical boat that the refugees might board to get across the sea. So you can see they're not boarding these big, nice ships. Often they're extremely small, unstable. Sometimes they're even inflatable boats that are not meant to cross a sea and definitely not meant to hold hundreds of passengers. Also, refugees often pay massive sums of money, normally their entire life savings, along with everything they own, for a spot on one of these boats. So if you can think about everything, all the money you've ever saved up, everything you own, and giving that just to get a spot on one of these crowded old boats. So after that, for the refugees that do arrive safely on Italian soil, unfortunately, their trip is not over. They must be documented. So they give their fingerprints, their information to the authorities, the Italian authorities. And then they go on to live in refugee camps. Refugee camps in Italy are often old, unused buildings, not exactly fit to live in, that lack basic resources, but refugees stay here while, if they're seeking asylum, which Claire talked to you all about earlier, then they'll start that process there. So asylum is when a person who's been persecuted or mistreated by their own country is looking to be protected by another country, so in this case, Italy. Asylum is ideally supposed to be granted to those who qualify within about 1 or 2 months, but that's very optimistic. In Italy, refugees can end up waiting to be granted asylum, all while living in these crowded refugee camps for anywhere from 3 months to several years. If asylum is granted, which is to less than half of those who apply, it's really hard for these refugees to find work and start living what we would consider a normal life. This is largely in part to Italy's economy. So Italy has a high unemployment rate. It's 12.7%, which to give you some comparison, here in the US, our unemployment rate is 4.9% at the moment. So it's much higher than the US. And so Italians are already struggling to find jobs. And this struggle is only multiplied for refugees who may have just arrived in the country. Maybe they don't speak Italian, or are seen as untrustworthy by the locals. So this leads to many of these people, many of these newly arrived refugees, to start searching for under the table or illegal work, which unfortunately only adds to Italy's already existing problem of corruption. So overall, Italy is often criticized for the way it handles, the way it is in the process of handling the refugee crisis. But new strategies and approaches definitely need to be considered, but not only by Italy, kind of by the European Union and everyone that is involved as a whole. So now Claire is going to talk to you all about the same crisis, but how it affects a different country, how it affects Spain in a different way. So Claire?